Right, so we've been recording Music Maps podcast now for well over 2 years, and the best thing about it is we're still finding new topics that we've never talked about. First time talking today about Jimi Hendrix, so one of the real icons of rock music, and we're getting onto him today for the first time. So the book is called Experienced. It's published on Little Brown. You can get it now. I saw it on Saturday in Residence in Brighton. So I saw it on the shelf, so I can verify that you can go out and get this now. I'm joined by Eric Barrett, who worked firsthand with Jimi Hendrix for a couple of years, I think from about May of 68 till the autumn of 1970. So hello, Eric. Thank you for joining us all the way from Santa Monica.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. So yeah, if you like Hendrix, if you like what we talk about today, look this book up after we finish. I'm going to start off with this real baptism of fire for you, Eric. So tell us about your first day on the job here working for Jimi Hendrix.
Well, my first day on the job, I got the call from Jerry Stickles, his tour manager, and said, I heard you ran into Mitch and Noel at 1 o'clock this morning at Blaze's nightclub. I said, correct. He said, can you come to Milan? And our roadie in the States took too many drugs, left the U-Haul truck and left it outside a Holiday Inn where the boys were staying. And Jerry had no roadie to help him. So he had to get all the stuff out of there. So it landed in Milan in bits. It was in pieces. In those days, we didn't have the fancy road cases. All we had was the cardboard boxes that came in, and we just kept gaffer taping them every day. That's how they flew. So we got there very late, and it was 2 sold-out shows at the Piper Club. The first show, it was time for it to be over, but the promoter, we still hadn't arrived with the gear, and the promoter let in the second club. So now the place is packed, and the only way to get the equipment onto the stage was through the audience, and they weren't giving up an inch. So that was Jerry and I. Panicked because, this place it's a fire hazard. We finally got the gear on stage, and Jimi Mitchell Noel came on, and Jimmy is staring at me as the feedback is going, and it just disappears. And all of a sudden, he's screaming at me, fix it, fix it. And the audience are looking at me as if, hey, you moron, fix it. And I'm doing everything I can. Nothing's working. Jerry and I are running around behind the amplifiers with our bare hands, taking out tubes and putting in fresh tubes, hoping that that's going to help it. But nothing. And when the show was over and I was stripping up and down, I got back to the hotel, and there was messages from Jerry said, call me no matter what time it is. So I called him up to ask for a plane ticket back to London. I wasn't going to put up with this. I'd never been treated like that. And he said, before you say a word, Jimmy's sorry, and he wants to apologize to you tomorrow in Rome. Please stay. I went, oh, okay, all right. So the next day, the boys arrived in the afternoon, and Jimmy came over, put his arm around my neck and around my shoulder, said, let's walk with me. And he's so quiet. He was very quiet. And he, hand on his mouth, he said, look, man, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't have jet lag. I have no excuse. Please stay and become part of the family. And that was it. I stayed. And for all those couple of years, 2.5 years, best time ever.
Yeah, I'm sure. Let's just rewind a tiny bit here. So I'm going to start this a couple of years before 1965, and it's a Butlins holiday camp in Ayr up in Scotland. So is this where it all starts for you, entering the world of music?
Well, when I was 13, 14, 15, I was the lead singer in my little band in Coatbridge.
Right. Yeah.
And then I went to rehearsals one day, and I was fired from my own band. They said, we found a better singer. And the singer they found was a guy called Dean Ford, who then went on to become Dean Ford and the Gaylords, and then he was Marmalade. They had many hits.
Yeah, okay.
So I was devastated, and I was 18, 19, did a season at Butlins Holiday Camp. My job was to stock all the bars with booze. And then one day they stuck up a bar, and this band was playing, the Koobas. And we became friends. And at the end of the session, the 3 months, they said, what are you doing after this? I said, looking for work. And they said, you want to come down to Liverpool with us and be a roadie? And I said, what does a roadie do? They said, well, you hump the gear, you drive the truck. And I said, how much does it pay? Well, we don't make much money. There's 4 of us. So now there'll be 5 of us and we'll split it. But we never made any money. We lived on French and chips and beer all over up and down the freeways, the motorways, Germany. That was how it was. So that started me on the road. And they were the opening act on a couple of package tours. And Jimi Hendrix was he wasn't the headliner. But so I saw Jimi Mitchell Noel for the first time working for the Koobas, and couldn't believe this, man. This Jimi Hendrix guy playing with his teeth between his legs, behind his back, rolling, doing somersaults on the ground with a guitar. And I went, wow, what an act. And then I was Saville Theatre, Brian Epstein's place. Jimmy was opened up. He was the headliner now, and started the show. And there was at least 2 Beatles in the audience, and he opened the show with Sgt. Pepper's. Yeah. Sang it, no rehearsals. The other 2 guys had never played it before, and he said, "I want to dedicate this," and it just blew everyone away. He's a man who heard the record 3 days ago, and he's up there, knows all the lyrics. That was Jimi Hendrix.
So for any listeners who want to know where this Saville Theatre is, it was, until quite recently, the Odeon Cinema on Shaftesbury Avenue. It has sadly closed. It's a beautiful old cinema building, and it's currently closed. But if you look out the front, if you're passing by, there are some plans of what they're going to do to this building, and it looks like when it's finished, it might actually be pretty cool. So they're going to put a gig venue back in there, I think.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, and have some residential, which I think will presumably pay for the development. So that's how they'll fund it. So yeah, it looks like it might end up being a gig venue again, because it's a building. I think a lot of people don't know the history of that building, the Saville Theatre. You'd come across Hendrix on these package tours. Had you heard of him before, or was this your first introduction?
Radio was blowing up when I'd be driving the van up and down the motorway. It was, there wasn't, in those days, there wasn't that many radio stations, but whatever the station was, it was blasting this guy. So everyone was aware of him. And Hey Joe, I think it was Hey Joe, was the first track I ever heard. So I just was as fascinated as everyone else was. And then before I joined them, Chaz Chandler had him play places like the Bag of Nails. Everyone was showing up. He'd look in the audience and there was Eric Clapton or Jeff Beck or whoever, all there to see this phenom that they'd heard about. And their mouths were open, I'm told, when he hit that stage. And I even heard that the first couple of days he did, there was maybe 10, 12 people in the audience until the word got out. And he gave them the full show. If there was 12,000 or 12, he went on there and it was Jimi. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So everything you'd heard about playing the guitar behind his back, playing it playing it backwards, playing it upside down, all this is true when you actually see it in the flesh?
It absolutely is. I mean, at first, when I looked at him picking with his teeth, I thought, he's not doing that. And then I was so close, I went, he is doing that. The man is picking with his teeth. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention to listeners now, one of the episodes I really want to do in the future. So Jimi Hendrix played a gig in my hometown of Darlington. So he played a show up in Darlington. The first tour he came over to the UK, and his guitar was stolen in Darlington and it was never recovered, and it's never been recovered to this day. So at some point, I want to do a real deep dive on that particular real niche part of Jimi Hendrix's career, because the guitar was stolen outside of the gig. My dad's secretary had been to the show, so she was one of a handful of people, because again, as you say, the early shows, very few attendees. So yeah, that's a little link. It's one of the only musical links to my hometown of Darlington. So off stage, Jimi Hendrix sounds like a pretty different to the on-stage persona.
2 totally different guys. On stage was, as the press called him, the wild man of rock and roll. Off stage, the most humble, beautiful man you could ever meet. Always with a guitar in his hand. I used to, Jerry Stickles and myself, we shared a duplex over there on the west side of New York. And I would walk head to Electric Ladyland, and I'd bang on Jimmy's door and I'd walk with him to the studio. And Jimi, all the kids were going, Jimi, Jimi. And he's got the guitar over his shoulder and he's giving everyone the peace sign. Everyone. Jimi never knew he was a star when he became a star. He didn't know it. He was just, all the man wanted to do was play guitar, make music, get into the studio. And he wanted to make better records than he was making because they were rushing him in. As soon as that record was ready to go, they would put him out on the road, and it just continued and continued and continued until he had burnout. But the last tour we did, Jimmy was burnt out and looking for money.
What about the other members of the Experience? So we mentioned briefly earlier, we've got Mitch Mitchell, Noel Redding, also in the band. How did you get on with those two?
They became my drinking buddies. They were my pals, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd been there's a pub in London on Wardour Street called The Ship. And The Ship was like the unemployment office.
Still there to this day?
Oh, I was there last year. Every time I'm in London, I stop by The Ship for a pint and to look around. It's too clean nowadays. It was a funky.
It's changed. It's changed. There was a period where it was a sort of heavy metal vibe for a while in there at one point, and it seems to have changed again. So yeah, it's perhaps not an authentic when you go inside compared to back here in the 60s.
I mean, in the 60s, you could go in there and if you were a keyboard tech, you'd go, anyone looking for keyboard tech, anyone looking for guitar, drum tech, and you would find a job. And
so it's the labor exchange of this whole music world.
Yeah, the unemployment office. I've lived over here too long now. It's the labor exchange. You're correct, sir. So yeah, all the bands would go there. I mean, The Move, Dave D, Dozy, Beaky McIntitch, all of these guys that you're too young to remember some of these bands. So Mitch and Noel and I would drink there a lot. So I knew the lads very well. And that was how it was on the road. I'd go out drinking with Mitch and Noel, and Jimmy wasn't a big drinker.
No. Were there any egos in the band? It sounds like not.
No,
yeah.
There wasn't. These were three guys like the rest of us, young 20s, wanting to get drunk, wanting to get high, and wanting to meet girls. That was the reason most of us all got into rock and roll. Nothing's changed to this day. The kids are getting in here for the same reason.
Pretty funny to me is that the man who ends up becoming Jimi Hendrix's guitar roadie couldn't actually tune a guitar.
Well, it wasn't that I couldn't tune it. You have to realize this was pre-strobo tuners.
Right,
So
it's a much harder process. Yeah.
So if he broke a string, I would be there. I'd give him another guitar. I'd run off to the side, restring it, and I would tighten it up, bing, 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 as best I could, and I would hand it back to him the next thing. As soon as he took it, he would play, but always on the machine heads, tuning. I never handed the man an in-tune guitar in my life. So there you go.
So how did you communicate with him during the gig?
We had our own language that we developed. For example, if he was looking at me, I could tell there was something wrong. And I would mouth, guitar, nope. Wah-wah pedal, nope. Univibe, nope. Fuzzball, yes. So I was so keen in the beginning, I had maybe 10, 12 fuzz boxes on my side, 10, 12 univibes, 10, 12 wah-wah pedals. And then I took it down. It was too much. And then I had 4. And one night he was looking, so I replaced the fuzz box. Didn't work. Gave him a second one. Didn't work. Gave him a third one. Wasn't happy. Gave him back the original one. And he loved it. And he came over on the side. He said, "That's how it should be, Eric. Thank you." But it was the original one that he said didn't work. I gave him back to in rotation. So there you go. It's very difficult to keep musicians happy.
The other part of the book that I thought was quite funny was that the PA would randomly pick up local stations with preachers and country music and things during the gig.
Yes. I mean, if he moved 3 inches to the right, it could have been a religious station. Half a foot to the left and would be screaming with something or country music. And I would get the looks and there's nothing I could do, but I go, Sorry, Jimmy, I can't fix that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the tech is still relatively primitive at this stage in the 60s compared to how it would become later on. Did you get any advance warning if Jimmy was planning to smash a guitar or do one of his famous...
He would rarely give advance warning, and I would rebuild some of the guitars that he'd put in pieces. And I would say, if you're going to smash one tonight, use this one. And he'd go, yeah, okay. And then I'd see him smash a brand new guitar. And I'd go, why? I mean, it's more work for me. And he actually said things like, Eric, I squeezed every note I could get out of that guitar. that guitar wasn't going to give me anything else. So I needed to find another guitar that will inspire me and I'm going to make me play better. And I'm going, yeah, okay. He's the master. I'm a little roadie. So I was going, yeah, okay. If you say so, boss. And that was how he thought.
Would you prefer it if you broke one of the older ones rather than one of the brand new ones you just got?
We had bunches of old ones. I don't know if you know what a carny is, but a carny is when you leave America or you leave Britain, the customs man will say, do you have a carny? Yes. And the carny could say 20 guitars, 10 Marshall amps. And going back into America once, the guy said, all right, show me the 20 guitars. And I had maybe 12. And I opened a case with bits of guitars in them. I said, there's the other 8. And he looked at me, what are you talking about? This is broken. I said, that's what my boss does. He breaks guitars. So I'm bringing the 20 back. I know, okay, on you go. Just on you go. They didn't want to have anything to do with me and my broken guitars.
There's another incident that made me laugh. Jimmy's beloved Marshall amps are replaced before a gig without him knowing. Tell us what happened at this show.
He just loved to see the holes in the speakers. He loved it. And if he put a hole in, that meant that the next day I was going to be having to take the speakers out, put speakers in, all extra work for me. And I was just one guy. Jerry was with the boys, and I was driving the truck by myself in the first year. So the less work I would have to do the next day would be better for me. But it was constantly panic to get the show on every day. And in those days, we didn't have stage hands either. So I was pretty exhausted. But he wasn't happy that I'd done some things without telling him. Why the new grills and the speakers? Well, didn't you want that? No, I really like the holes in the speakers. I like that, Eric. Okay, fair enough. Wouldn't do that again.
There's a TV appearance on the BBC. I think it's on Lulu's TV show where Jimi Hendrix, halfway through a song, just changes tack and goes into something completely different. Could it be hard to keep up at times?
Not for me. I wasn't the one on stage having to keep up. He just said, the Cream are breaking up and I want to dedicate this to the Cream. So he went in, I don't remember which song it was, Sunshine of Your Love. I can't remember. And the Lulu people were furious because he went over his allotted time but that was, I think they banned him from the BBC forever for that. Said, you'll never play for the BBC again. And Jimmy goes, yeah, okay. Not a lot fazed him.
No, that definitely comes across. Did you join in any jam sessions or anything like that? Was there ever a moment where you were involved?
TVG studios in Los Angeles, and a lot of musicians had come in. It was a big jam, just a huge jam. And there was a tambourine sitting there. So I went, yeah, I'm getting in on this. So I went over getting into the tambourine. I was never asked to play tambourine again. I don't know how bad I was, but it must have been bad when the master says, Eric, no more tambourine.
The one that caught my eye was one that asks for a $4,000 bar tab that I think Jimmy has ran up.
That was a club called The Experience. And that was during the period we had, Mike Jeffries had rented this huge house up in the Benedict Canyon in the Beverly Hills. And we would drive down every night, 5 of us, in a different car, and park there. And night one, the kids on the strip had heard Jimi Hendrix was drinking in The Experience. So packed. The next night, there was lines around the place waiting to get in. And Jimmy was there every night, every single night. And I remember the owner, a lovely man called Marshall Brevitz. And he came over to me, Eric, I need to talk to you. Yeah, okay. We went outside and he handed me the bill for about $4,000 or something in bar bills that over the past week, all the girls were in our booths. All the booze went on a one tab. And I turned to Marshall. I said, Marshall, how many people do you have in that club right now? Oh, it's packed. It's packed. I said, fine. We won't be here tomorrow night. We'll just go back up to the whiskey. And he said, oh, no. And he tore the bill up. He said, there's no bill. There's no bill. I went, okay, fair enough. We'll be back tomorrow night.
Yeah, you mentioned there you spend this incredible period of time living in this house in Benedict Canyon in LA with the Jimi Hendrix Experience. There's all kinds of stories here, including these incredible car races. I think younger listeners will be startled to hear some of the things that were just considered fairly commonplace back in this day.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, we abused. We were driving drunk every night coming back up from the clubs, and we would race. And Mitch loved race cars. Mitch would overtake on a blind corner, and if you made a mistake, you were going off the end of the canyon. So that was every night, putting our lives in danger and the public's lives in danger just to get back up to the house. That was our lifestyle. And another story is talking about the experience, the club, the experience. Jerry had driven across from New York to LA on a brand new Corvette. Jimmy had bought a Corvette, and Jimmy drove it there to surprise him. And Jerry drove him there. And Jimmy's eyesight wasn't really that good. And one night, Marshall came. I was sitting in the booth. He said, Eric, come quick. And I go out there, and the girls are bringing Jimmy in, and there's blood coming down his face. He had crashed the Corvette. So we got him in the club, and I looked. All I thought was, I have to get this Corvette off Sunset Strip. So metal on metal on metal, drove it around, got to a payphone, called Jerry, who was still up at the house. I said, here's the problem. He said, stay there. So he came down, and they had it towed. Meanwhile, I went back inside, and Jimmy's got a big smile on his face because all the girls with little face cloths are wiping all the blood off him. And he forgot. He already had forgotten he was in an accident. He was now back in, having a beer and the girls. So that was that night.
Were there any drug busts? This is the period of time where drug busts are pretty prevalent.
Many attempts. There was one night, I think it was just Noel was in the house, Jerry and myself, and there was a huge gate. To get into this house, you couldn't scale the gate. It had to be electronically open. And the buzzer, and it was the LAPD, and they said, LAPD, let us in. And I said, no. And they said, they didn't say, what do you mean no? But it was that a stupid conversation. I said, no. And I said to them, no, I'm not allowed to open. And they said, all right, we'll be back with a warrant. I said, fair enough. And I called up the lawyers, and they said, get on your hands and knees and check all the carpets, go into all the boys' bedrooms and check. So we went on our hands and knees, and we found quite a amount of drugs, bags of cocaine in the shag carpet, joints all over the place. We flushed all the drugs, but the police never came back. So Jimmy and Mitch were saying, oh, what do you mean? I said, this is what the lawyers told us to do. So there's nothing. No, nothing. So yeah, that happened a couple of times. Coming into England when they would get strip searched was a thing that happened quite often.
Yeah, because the police hate some of these bands, don't they?
There was one particular policeman in London who I think he busted one of the Stones, he busted one of the Beatles, and that was his gig.
Sergeant Pilcher.
Was that his name?
Yeah, Sergeant Pilcher, yeah.
Well, he wanted to make a name for himself as the pop star's drug buster, whatever the heck. Sergeant Pilcher.
Yeah. There was there's many stories. I think there's a $500 birthday gift from Jimmy himself, but the one that I wanted to ask you about was you receive a phone call in the middle of the night to go and bail Mitch Mitchell out of a local police station. Was this another driving incident?
We were staying. That was not the Benedict Canyon stay. We were all staying in the Beverly Rodeo Hotel in Beverly Hills, and everyone had gone their own way on this particular night. And I got the call. Mitch's one call was, I think he tried Jerry first, and Jerry wasn't in. And then he called me and he told me he'd been busted. And would I come and get a bail bondsman and bail him out? And I said, yeah, okay. Got back in the car that I should have been getting into because I was unfortunately very drunk. And I drove to the police station. And I think the sergeant behind the desk knew I was drunk. And he said, well, take a seat. We'll get back to you. And around 4 hours later, they let Mitch out. And I think they were just waiting for me to sober up rather than throw me in the cell with Mitch. And he came out and he was livid. What took so long? I was in there with these two transvestite guys. What took so long? I'm going, calm down. Let me get you back to the hotel. Just calm down. And that's how you have to treat rock stars. You just have to be at their whatever. Everyone's going to be fine. So that was that night. I've bailed many other musicians out of many places. Germany, I bailed up. Yeah, it's just part of the job.
Not many people can say they were given a birthday present from Jimi Hendrix. And also, we should also touch on, I think you're is this your 22nd birthday? Like, you're very young yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I was 22 at the time, and he came out. We're all by the pool in Benedict Canyon house, and he came out, Jimmy, no shirt on, but the crushed velvet pants could have been purple, could have been red, whatever color they were. And he goes, Eric, happy birthday, man. Here, take this. And it was $500, $400 or $500, a lot of money. It's a lot of money in 68. He said, buy yourself a birthday present. So I drove down to a place called North Beach Leathers, which Jimmy had several pieces from them. And I bought this long leather coat, and it was magnificent. Spent every penny I had, and I brought it back, and Jimmy's like, yeah, that's a coat. Well done. So I think I wore that coat to the nightclubs every night for 2 weeks.
You put it to good use then in the end. On a slightly darker tone, while also in Benedict Canyon, I think you inadvertently come across the Manson family, but you don't realize till quite much later.
No, we didn't know who they were. Jerry and I walked up to the gate, and we opened the gate a little. There was 4 kids there, 4 scruffy-looking individuals, and they said, hi, we'd like to meet Jimmy. And we said, no, that's not going to happen. And I said, but we're Charlie Manson followers. But yeah, fair enough. We didn't know who Charlie Manson was. Didn't mean a thing to us. And then we found out, after the Tate LaBianca murders, these were followers. I don't know if any one of them was actually involved in the murders, but I'm glad we didn't let them in. We might have all been murdered.
No, they do kind of crop up in the stories of the Beach Boys and quite a lot of West Coast acts. Neil Young, as well as someone who had a lot of interactions with Charles. Who was Boris the Spider?
That was Mitch Mitchell had spiked us all with acid in the house we were renting in Hawaii, and we didn't know it at the time. And then when we all realized, Jimmy and Noel said to me, are you flying? And I said, I think I am. Why? And Jimmy said, that little cuss word, Mitchell, I think he spiked us. And he had spiked the pineapple cake, of which I had eaten 2 pieces of. So I went back to go to bed to try and, if I can fall asleep, I'll be good. So I walked into my bedroom, and there was this huge spider. I mean, huge, like a tarantula, whatever they call them. And I freaked out, so I'm screaming, running around, picking up shoes from everyone's bedroom, stood on a chair and started whacking this spider with shoes until I had no more shoes in my arms. And then by this time, Jimmy and Noel and a couple of girls wanted to see what's going on, hearing all the screaming. So they're all laughing at me. And I just nicknamed him Boris the Spider after John Entwistle from The Who. And a maid came in, picked it up with her hands and put it outside to safety. Not this lunatic throwing shoes at the poor little thing.
Was there a period once the Electric Lady Studios opens? Is there a period where perhaps Jimmy shifted a bit more to the studio rather than being on the road?
He wanted nothing more than to stop touring for a year, get into the studio at his pace, make the record he wanted to make. The 3 that were made were rushed. In days, those records, I'm told, were made and put out. And as soon as they were ready to go, the management had them back out on the road. And we didn't tour so well in those days. We would do one day would be the West Coast, next 2 days would be the East Coast, then back to the West Coast. There was no routing in those days. So it was very hectic. He had visions. On our last flight, just him and I going from New York to come back to do the Isle of Wight festival. He was telling me, we're going to take time off. We're going to make this record. And when we come back, I'm going to have a horn section. I'm going to have different guest musicians. One will come in from stage right. There could be a couch there. He'll finish playing. He'll sit on the couch. Another guest will come in from stage left. He had all of these ideas. He wanted to just see how far he could take his thoughts.
Let's talk about Woodstock. So how did the band prepare for this, what becomes an iconic gig, probably his most famous ever show?
They were all at the Shokin house, it was called, and we all lived there for a week or more, maybe more, and they rehearsed every day. And I was still bitter about Noel leaving. Now I had Billy Cox, who's a wonderful, wonderful man. But all these other guys, Juma and I can't remember their names. And they weren't very friendly to Jerry and I. And I think at that time, Upsy, it was either Upsy or Eugene, Gene was helping me. And just for me, Woodstock wasn't the Jimi Hendrix Experience. It was, what did they call it? Sky Church or something at the time. I didn't enjoy Woodstock like everyone else did. But we should have gone on at midnight. That was the time, but the weather delays. And the promoters said to the management, put Jimmy on at midnight. And he said, no, we're the headliner. We close the show. So when Jimmy went on at 6, 7 in the morning,
Yeah.
it wasn't 600,000 anymore. There may have been 270, 250. The kids had all got, they had to go back to work, figure out how to get back, find the cars if they hadn't been towed away, and then get back to work. So that was a huge mistake.
What brought about Noel leaving the band?
Noel wanted to be a lead guitar player. When he went for the audition, he thought it was to be a lead guitar player, but he got the job as the bass player. And Noel had some resentment at not being the lead guitar player. He was my mate, really, really good buddy. I missed him. So Woodstock to me it's all right. And the follow up was that night, as we loaded the truck out, we had to do the Dick Cavett TV show, and they for 2 weeks had done a promo. Jimi Hendrix after Woodstock's going to be playing. But so I went down there and we were setting up the equipment, and I got a phone call from the office and it said, "Get out of there." I said, "What do you mean get out of there?" "Jimmy's not coming. He's sick." I went, "Okay." So I started taking the equipment out, and the stage manager came over and said, "Hey, Eric, what are you doing?" I said, "I've just got a call from the office. We've got to take gear out." And he said, "You're kidding." And long story short, Mitch told me a day or two later that the network had sent a helicopter up and it parked pretty near the house where they were living. And Jimmy went out and he looked at the helicopter and he said, "I can't get on that." And Mitch said to him, "Why?" He said, "It doesn't have enough chopper blades." What does that mean? It doesn't have enough. And all helicopters have the same chopper blades. So he didn't get on it. But we went back 2 weeks later and all was forgiven. We played the Dick Cavett show a couple of weeks later.
Just before we move on from Woodstock, it's the first time I've ever talked about it, the first time I've ever actually been able to ask anyone who was actually there. Just describe the scene here on arrival at Woodstock. Was it easy to get the band in, or was it?
No, I had what I was supposed to do was fly in the chopper with the band later on that day. And I sent my two guys in. And I got a phone call, one saying they had to go to this Holiday Inn where they picked up all the passes. And so they started driving in, and at the first roadblock, the police said, "You can't go any further, the roads are blocked." So they drove back to the Holiday Inn, they called me at the house, and they said, "Eric, we can't get in." And I was like, "What do you mean you can't get in?" I was so looking forward to my helicopter ride. And so I got a taxi to the Holiday Inn, said, "Move over," and I got behind the wheel. Got to the first roadblock, and the cop said, "No, you can't go any further." And so I all of a sudden became the Scotsman. The heaviest Scottish accent you could ever hear came out of my mouth. We're with the Jimi Hendrix Experience, didn't you, Ken? If we don't get here, you're going to have a riot. And they got, "Oh, for God's sake." So he went, just go. Didn't want to put up with us. And the second roadblock, the police, I said the same thing. I said, but the first guy said we could go. And I talked our way in to driving the truck. And the closer we got, the kids, there was two lane little road, but the kids had started parking their cars on the right and on the left. And to get through there, I had to give them little nudges of the cars so as the truck could get through. So I think I dinged up quite a few kids' cars, not intentionally. And then I got to the site, and it was incredible. It was like a movie. 600,000 kids out there, smoke coming up, rain coming down on them. They're stoned, they're drunk, they're hungry. And I went, that's not right. Backstage, meanwhile, the barbecue pits were going, the bars, everyone's dressing room was full of booze. And out there, they were hungry. And the weather was nasty. So, drive the last, half a mile getting in. The kids just everyone was peace and love, showing peace signs. And I just had to make sure I didn't clip a kid. I mean, the cars were one thing, but I didn't want to, the big wing mirrors. You hit a kid with that. Yeah. So it could have been better. for the kids. And I actually did the second Woodstock. I went with Korn to do that one, and that was the biggest disaster ever.
Was that even more of a disaster?
Oh, Limp Bizkit. Fred went off on told the kids to do this and do that, and they rioted. And he thought it was funny. The promoter, I think it was John Sher at the time, he didn't think it was funny. None of us thought it was funny. And the reason I went back, I'd stopped doing Korn, and their manager said, Eric, will you come back? You know, the boys knew you were here with Jimi. Would you come back and do Woodstock? And I said, well, how are you getting that? They said, we have a private plane. All the bands are going on it. And I said, well, I'll go if I had my 13, 14-year-old daughter. I said, do you have a seat for her? They said, yes, we'll make that happen. So that's why I went back, give my daughter a 5-hour ride to the East Coast, spend a couple of days, and then fly back. So that's why I did the second one, but it was a disaster, an absolute disaster. Check it out. The movie, it's on Netflix. Or it was.
Yes, look that up if any listeners are not familiar with that second Woodstock. The
They'll be
original one.
Horrifying.
The original one, famously, Hendrix goes on at 9 a.m. on the Monday morning. A lot of people have already left. It's daylight by the time he gets on the stage. It's completely insane. So look these up if you wanna dig a bit deeper into Woodstock. Presumably you just had to stay up all night until after this show, this original Hendrix show finishes?
Oh, we sometimes I didn't see a bed for 3-4 nights. I'd sleep in a cab. That was our job. If it was 400 miles, you got in it and you drove 400 miles. When I got sleepy, one of the other crew would come over and take over, and two of us asleep, one driving. And that's how it was. And we're having the time of our lives.
Just on a personal level, Eric, what do you get up to after? So the Jimi Hendrix Experience sort of naturally dissolves here in, I think, the middle of '69. So what do you get up to after this on a personal level?
I would either be living in Noel Redding's house down in Kent, or I'd be living in Mitch Mitchell's house. That was how it went. And just waiting for the next tour. So I was living rent free in their houses. And when it was time to go back to work, we went back to work. And that was I was on salary from the first day I joined them till Jimi passed. And then even at that, management kept Jerry and I on salary at Electric Lady, but with nothing to do. So when an opportunity came in to get another job, I jumped at it.
Who do you go on to work with after Jimi?
I got a call that Peter Asher, the famous Peter Asher of Peter and Gordon, he was managing James Taylor, and he later managed Linda Ronstadt and Cat Stevens and many, many others. I went to a meeting thinking they were looking for a guitar roadie or any kind of roadie. And Peter Asher was there with Nat Weiss, who was the Beatles lawyer, and this other guy, Jock McLean. So I went in there, lovely meeting, and Peter said, so what we're looking for, Eric, is we need a lighting designer director for James. And the first thing out of my mouth was, I can do that. I know all about lights. I didn't have a clue. A light switch turned on.
Say yes, figure it out afterwards.
And that's what I did. And it was only Jock McLean and myself would be in the front seat of a station wagon. James would be in the back seat. And with that, 2 acoustic guitars, an amp, and a tape-to-tape reel. And that was how we went from colleges to colleges. And I got really good at lights. Eventually, I designed for David Bowie on the Isolar tours. So faked my way through it.
Jimi Hendrix passes away September the 18th of 1970. Was his behavior a little unpredictable towards the end of his life?
He was stressed to the max. After we played the Isle of Wight, and then we had to go and play these various other places, he didn't want to go. The man was exhausted, totally exhausted. All he was seeing in his mind's eye was, let's cancel this tour and let me get back into Electric Lady Studios and make records. So Jerry and I, again, there was a couple of guys driving the truck, and it was just Jerry and I taking care of Jimmy Mitch and Billy Cox. Getting him on a plane was next to impossible. One day he sat on the side, outside the airport on the curbside, and Jerry said, see what you can do. He said he's not going. So I'd go out and sit down beside him and go, what's up, Jimmy? And he'd just have a little rant. I go, we've got to go. We've just got to get on that plane, mate. The kids are waiting. And it was for all of us, it was very difficult. And then when we finished the last live gig at the Isle of Fairman, and the Hells Angels took over the place, and it was a dangerous place to be. And that wiped all of us out, getting out of there. And I think the Hells Angels shot the promoter dead, is what I was told. I have no verification of that. I never went back to find out. Everyone was exhausted. So when Jimmy got back, that tour was over. He was going to hang around London for a few days and then get back to New York. And didn't make it out of London. I had a girlfriend that's from in London, and I got back to the hotel I was staying at 6, 7, 8 in the morning. I don't remember. And there was messages from Jerry, and he says, "Call me, call me, call me." So I called him up. I said, "What's up?" And he started off. He said, "Where have you been? I tried all the other hotels you stay at." I said, "Oh, I was at the girlfriend's." He said, "Sit down." I said, "Oh, okay." So I sat down, and he said, "Eric, Jimmy's dead." And I thought, oh, what do you mean Jimmy's dead? And I didn't know if it was a practical joke. And he said, "Jimmy's dead." And he said, blah, 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 blah. So we hung up. He said, "I'll call you later." And I just went out in the days, 10, 11 in the morning, went from one pub to the next pub to the next pub, looked at the television, and I saw the newscaster, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the wild man of pop is dead, Jimi Hendrix." And the first thing that came to my mind was, I better call Mum. So I went to the payphone, picked up and called her to say, "I'm okay. You're going to probably see this on the television. My employee, Jimmy, is dead." And she's like, "Oh, son, I'm so sorry." So I hung up and just went from pub to pub. And that was that day. The next day I had to go. I don't even remember. It was that afternoon or the next day I got the phone call, rent a car and come over to the house and get Monica Danman out of here, the girlfriend at the time who had given Jimmy the sleeping pills, which eventually killed him. And when the ambulance people came, I'm told that they'd taken better care of him. I have no way of knowing it to be true or not. He threw up and he asphyxiated. He choked on his own vomit.
Well, that's the story of Jimi Hendrix. First time we got to talk about him. I'm really glad we got to talk about him today. I've been waiting. He's been on my list. Thank you to Eric. It's great to get to talk about Jimi Hendrix. And if you want to hear more, there's a hell of a lot more in his book. We've only scratched the surface there, really. So yeah, go ahead and get this book. We've got lots of live events coming up in the autumn. Dave Rowntree from Blur, Marco Peroni, Adam and the Ants, Mickey Brenny from Lush, lots of others. So keep an eye on our website, keep an eye on the socials, and we will see you all next time.